So we're going to change the color of the line work using Command on a Mac or Control on a PC. Click on the thumbnail of a layer. I'm using a layer that has all of the white of the background is removed using channels, and that is a previous video. So let's look at how to change the color of this line work. My image is in grayscale, which is fine for now. I'm going to press Command or Control on a PC, and you can see how the hand, it turns and it has this little marquee box next to it, and that looks something like this. So this is a closer up view, and you can see how if I'm pressing Command or Control on PC, the mouse turns and it looks like that. When I click, it makes a selection. Now that my selection is made, I can do a few things now. I can just pick a color that I want the line work to be. So let's just make it pure black for now to enhance that. And I'm going to fill. Shortcut keys to fill with your background and your foreground colors are Control or Command if you're on a Mac, backspace, or delete on a Mac, and Alt, delete or backspace, depending, backspace PC, Mac, delete, so Alt delete is your foreground color. And make sure that you're on the right layer that you actually want the fill to happen. So let's try that out. If I press D, the shortcut key D, that gives me my default colors. Black is my foreground color, white is my background color. I want to fill with my foreground color, so I'm going to press Option and delete. And you don't really see much of a difference because it was black already. Now I want to get rid of this selection. So I'm going to go to Select, Deselect, which is also Command or Control on a PC, D. So let's get rid of that. One thing I like to do is to put a white background layer behind the line work because this checkerboard is difficult to look at. So I'm going to make a new layer, and we want to fill this layer with white, which is my background color. So I'm going to press Command or Control on a PC and delete. Okay, so we know all about layers and the order, so I'm going to drag this one down. Why don't I start renaming things? So let's call this white, and let's call this one line work, and this is the black line work. I want to make a new layer that has a white line work against a black background. So what I'm going to do is press Command and click to select all the pixels on the layer and make a new layer here. And now let's fill with white. So we know that Command click is going to fill with my background color, and I'm going to deselect, select, deselect. And we can hide this black one. Let's call this, let's hide everything so you can kind of see what happened there. Let's call this line work white, and what's going to help us is to give it a background layer that is a different color than white so that we can actually see it. We're going to make a new layer, and now we want to fill this layer with black, which is the foreground color, and we know that Option delete is going to fill with the foreground color. I'm going to move this down so it's underneath it, and let's call this one black. And now you can start to see for real here everywhere that this kind of needs some cleaning up. So I might want to also try to clean up this before doing any other major things to the rest of this. So to just really get it cleaned up beforehand. And this is because it's a pencil and not a pen. So let's do the same thing for these, which were created with pen. I'm just going to call this black line work. And I want to make a new layer. I'm going to fill it with black. Option delete. Now I'm going to make a new layer, and I want this one to be my white line work. So I'm going to select all of the pixels on this, just so you know. This can work for any layer. For instance, there are pixels everywhere in this black layer because it was filled everywhere, right? If you fill without a selection, it goes everywhere. If you have a selection and then you fill, it's going to only fill inside that selection. Let's deselect. And I want to fill everywhere, and this is my black. Let's call this background. So to fill everywhere, option delete. If I press command click on this layer, you can see that there are pixels everywhere, and that's why the marquee box is everywhere, right? So I'm going to deselect. Now let's get the pixels that we want from this layer. So command click is going to select all the pixels on my black line work layer. I'm going to make sure that I'm on a new layer is selected, otherwise whatever you do is going to end up in the layer that your selection is. And I want to fill with white, because this is my white line work. So we're going to take the background, we need the background, so that's a command delete, and I'm going to deselect to see what happened, and now we have this, we can see it's a little bit cleaner because this was done with pen. One thing you can do if you are working and you want to save, say you're not ready to deselect, but you want to look at what you did without getting rid of your selection. So you can go to select, and you can actually, it's in view, and then you can hide. So it says extras, it's command H, and that is going to hide. So I'm going to do that. This is hiding your selection, but your selection is still there. So say for whatever reason you want to do this again, but you don't want to get rid of your selection. The selection is still there, it's just hidden. I'm going to make a new layer. And now let's get a gray. So I'll say okay. And I want to fill with my background color. Command delete. So it's still, my selection is still there, it filled, and I can actually show my selection now. So let's show that, and it's still there. So if you just press Command H, this is going to hide or show your selection, because sometimes it's hard to see what happened with all those marching ants. The marching ants I'm referring to is your selection. And maybe for whatever reason you don't actually want to deselect yet. When you're ready to deselect, you can say select and deselect, and this is actually going to get rid of your selection. So now we have, you should get gray, make a gray line work, make a black line work, make a white line work, and then you're going to need 3 more layers. One is just a white background. So D for the default colors, Command Delete, and then you can see what that looks like. And then we need a gray background, which is we're going to fill with that. And this is our gray background. So that's how you take, Command click, make the selection, and then change the color of the line.